Everything that's going on in today's world, communication and developing solid listening skills is probably more important than ever. Yet we seem to devote less and less time to really listening to one another. So before we get started, you can go to modomamassage.com. We'll talk more about that at the end. But we are going to talk today about genuine listening. Genuine listening has become a rare gift. It helps build relationships, solve problems, ensure understanding, resolve conflicts, and improve accuracy. At work, this means fewer errors and less wasted time. At home, this means we can develop self-reliant kiddos who can solve their own problems. Listening builds friendships, it builds careers, and it saves money, it saves marriages, it saves friendships. So today we'll talk about 10 tips that'll help you develop compassionate listening skills. So the first tip we're going to talk about is maintaining eye contact with the person you're talking to. So talking to someone while they scan the room, scan a computer screen, looking at their phone, gazing out the window, doing whatever. It's like trying to talk to a moving target. Much of the person's attention is divided. How much are you actually getting? 50%? 5%? If the person were your child, you might say, hey, look me in the eyes, bro. But that's not the sort of thing we say to a partner, a friend, or a colleague. In most Western cultures, eye contact is considered a basic ingredient of effective communication. When we talk, we look at each other in the eye. That doesn't mean you can't carry on a conversation from across the room or from another room, but if the conversation continues for any length of time, for you or the other person, then you're going to want to get up and move so you can actually see that person. Communication pulls you together. So do your conversational partners the courtesy of turning to face them. Put aside papers, books, the phone, and other distractions. Look at them, even if they're not looking at you. Just try and stay focused when you're talking to someone. The second tip is be attentive but relaxed. Now that you've made eye contact, you don't have to look at them fixed just the entire time. You can look away now and then and carry on like a normal person. But the important thing is to be attentive. The dictionary says that to attend another person means to be present, to give attention, to apply or direct yourself, to pay attention, and remain ready to serve. I love that, remain ready to serve. So you're going to want to mentally screen out distractions like background activity and noise. In addition, try not to focus on the speaker's accent or speech mannerisms to the point where they become distractions. Don't be distracted by your own thoughts either, feelings or biases. And this leads us into tip number 3, keep an open mind. So listen without judging the other person or mentally criticizing the things that he or she tells you. If what they say alarms you, you can feel alarmed, but basically don't outwardly say, well, that was stupid or anything like that. And don't try really hard not to show that on your face and in your nonverbal communication. It'll reduce your effectiveness as a listener. Listen without jumping to conclusions. The only way you're really going to get to know what that person needs is by listening. Don't take your partner's feelings personally or the person that you're talking to. They don't necessarily match your own. Compassion means accepting the person's feelings that's talking to you just for what they are. Don't be a sentence grabber. This is a really good one. Occasionally, a friend or your spouse or partner can't slow their mental pace enough to listen effectively, so they might try to speed up the conversation by interrupting and finishing sentences. I am guilty of this. This usually lands people way off base because when you interject your own train of thought, it doesn't help you actually learn what your listening partner is really trying to say. Sometimes you might say, do you want to have this conversation by yourself? If they're just trying to finish sentences for you. And so we don't want to do that. We want to really just give the time and space needed to let your listening partner actively think. Tip 4 is to listen to the words and try to picture what the speaker is saying. So allow your mind to create a mental model of the information being communicated. Whether it's a literal picture in your mind or an arrangement of abstract concepts, your brain will do the necessary work if you stay focused with senses fully alert. When you listen for long stretches, concentrate on and remember key words and phrases. That's super important. When it's your turn to listen, don't spend the time planning what to say next. How many of you are guilty of this? Me, I have so done this. When you rehearse and listen at the same time, you're basically wasting what the other person is saying because you're not fully listening. Concentrate on what's being said, even if it bores you. If your thoughts start to wander, immediately force yourself to refocus. So tip 5 is don't interrupt and don't impose your solutions. Don't try and fix the problem or give advice unless it's specifically asked. Sometimes we just want to be listened to and have our feelings heard. When we're hurting, we need empathy. We don't need advice, we need empathy. It's natural to want to help and offer instant solutions, but advice may not be what the person needs at the moment. Men especially can be guilty of this. They tend to be problem solvers, but should bear this in mind and just listen to the problem. Interrupting sends a variety of messages to the speaker. It says, I'm more important than you are. It says, what I have to say is more interesting or better or accurate or relevant. It says, I don't really care what you think. I don't have time for your opinion. And this isn't a conversation, it's a contest. And I'm going to win. I don't want to be guilty of that. And I know you don't either. We all think and speak at different rates. So if you're a quick thinker and an agile talker, the burden is on you to relax your pace for the slower, more thoughtful communicator, or for the person who has had trouble expressing himself. Be patient and don't get frustrated if your partner can't say what he or she feels right away. Sometimes it takes time for a person to find the words that they need to express what they're feeling. Silence and patience help people give voice to their feelings. And what may feel like a long silence to you is not a long silence to them. So be sure and give adequate time for silence to let them catch up mentally and verbally. When you listen to someone talk about a problem, you want to refrain from suggesting solutions. Most of us don't want advice anyway. If we do, we'll ask for it. Most of us prefer to figure out our own solutions. And a lot of times we find that we already have them inside. Just verbalizing that is able to help us progress. We, as a speaker, need you to listen and help us do that. Somewhere way down the line, if you're absolutely bursting with a brilliant solution, at least get the speaker's permission and say, would you like to hear my ideas? So we're halfway through. Tip 6, wait for the speaker to pause before asking clarifying questions. So try not to interrupt. When you don't understand something, of course you should ask the speaker to explain it more fully to you. But rather than interrupt, wait until the speaker pauses. Then say something like, okay, back up a second. I didn't understand what you just said about XYZ. Tip 7 is ask questions only to ensure understanding. Okay, here's an example. At lunch, a coworker is excitedly telling you about her trip to the Cayman Islands and all the wonderful things that she did and she saw. And in the course of this, she mentions that she spent some time with a mutual friend, Amanda. Then you jump in with, oh, I haven't heard from Amanda in ages. How is she? Isn't she going through a divorce? Things like that. And so the conversation will shift. And before you know it, hearing about the Caymans is a distant memory. So our questions lead people in directions that have nothing to do with where they thought that they were originally going with that topic. But sometimes we're able to work our way back, but sometimes we're not. So when you notice that your question has led a speaker astray, take responsibility for getting the conversation back on track by saying something like, okay, it was awesome to hear about Amanda, but tell me more about the Caymans. Sorry about that. Tip 8, try to feel what the speaker is feeling. If you feel sad when the person with whom you're talking expresses sadness, joyful when she expresses joy, fearful when she describes her fears, and convey those feelings through your facial expressions, your words, your body language, then your effectiveness as a listener is assured. Empathy is the heart and soul of good listening. To experience empathy, you have to put yourself in the other person's place and allow yourself to feel what it's like to be her at that moment. And it's not an easy thing to do. It takes energy, it takes concentration, it takes a lot, but it's generous and helpful, and it facilitates communication like nothing else. So tip 9, give the speaker regular feedback. So use reflective listening, a technique that makes the other person feel understood and cared for. When you say, I understand that you're hurting right now, or I hear that this is a difficult time for you, then the person that you're talking to will be encouraged and want to tell you more about the problem. If you say things like, yeah, I can't understand why you feel that way, or that doesn't make any sense to me, then the person you're speaking with will shut down. It's not what you want. If the speaker's feelings are hidden or unclear, then occasionally paraphrase the content of the message, or just nod and show that you're understanding through appropriate facial expressions and well-timed body language. The idea is to give the speaker some proof that you're listening and that you're following their train of thought, that you're not off indulging in your own fantasies or thinking about what to say next or anything like that. The last tip is to pay attention to what's not said, to nonverbal cues. This can be just as important to what's being said. The majority of direct communication is probably nonverbal. We glean a great deal of information about each other without even saying a word. Even over the telephone, you can learn almost as much about a person from the tone and the cadence of their voice than from anything that they're actually saying. I think that anyone who's had a partner or spouse knows this to be true. When I talk to my best friend, it doesn't matter what we chat about. If I hear her laugh, I feel reassured that she's doing well. Face to face with a person, you can detect enthusiasm, you can detect boredom or irritation very quickly in the expression around the eyes, the set of the mouth, the slope of the shoulders, all of these things. These are great clues that you can't ignore. When listening, remember that words convey only a fraction of the message. So just to summarize, so for at least 1 week, I want you to do something. At the end of every conversation which information is exchanged, I want you to conclude with a summary statement. In conversations that result in agreements about future obligations or activities, summarizing will not only ensure accurate follow-through, it will feel more natural. So that's it for today. Guys, thanks so much for joining, and thanks for listening and wanting to become a better listener. You can visit modomamassage.com to get more information. Modoma is about treating the body as a whole, using as many non-medicinal services as possible, which naturally leads to a more rounded way of life, more rounded life. We do this by way of medically integrated massage and a host of other services that we provide. So you can visit modomamassage.com to learn more. We accept insurance and you don't need a referral. So check us out. We'd love to help you and lead you on a path to wellness. Thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful day and a beautiful week.